Greetings and welcome to this episode on Geeks First. I'm glad to make this video because I feel like I need a one-stop shop for new players that are beginning to jump into the game Flesh and Blood for Part the Mistveil, and this video will serve as that guide. Today I will cover a myriad of resources and different information where you can find kind of some of the things for the pre-release, as well as just various things that you might enjoy, and hopefully these references will find you well. So let's dive right in and maybe take a look at what's coming down the pipeline for Part the Mistveil, because those pre-releases are happening starting tomorrow, and this is bound to be an exciting time for those jumping into Flesh and Blood. Alright, let's first start talking about something that is pretty basic, at least for a veteran that has been to a lot of pre-releases. But if you've never been, there's a couple of resources you'll probably want to know. One, obviously, if you're interested in the game Flesh and Blood, you need to check out the website, fabtcg.com, or talk with your local game stores and figure out where these pre-releases are located. So step one is finding those resources. And on Fab's website, there is a very nice tool that is basically an event finder that is located on the main page. Once you go to fabtcg.com, it is called Events, and you would go to the one called Event Locator. So what you would do with this, and this is where I will switch to a split screen here. Alright, so once you've reached the Fab TCG website, you're going to go down to this location here that says Articles. Just kidding, you're going to look for Events. Once you're under Events, there's a couple different options here. There's Organized Play, Events Locator. We're going to pick Events Locator. Now, where I'm located, we're going to select for the format. We're going to leave that any format, and for the type, because we are interested in the Part the Mistveil pre-release, we're going to select Part the Mistveil pre-release. They make it very simple. I'm going to keep this within 50 kilometers because I'm going to type in my zip code. So I recommend, if you're in the U.S., using your zip code. So 46231 is the zip code here. And if I go search by distance and hit search, we will see the results pop up right here. Now I see that for me, within a reasonable distance, I have 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5 that are within 50 kilometers, but these are a little bit further away, and they would take me, over an hour of travel. So for me, they may not be worth it. So as an example, I'm going to be looking at this event here at my LGS Valkyrie's Vault, and then you'll notice here that this one says on Saturday, May 25th. These two, I guess they actually moved it. This was not the case. So this is kind of a nice piece here. Looks like Grandmaster Games moved theirs a little bit further in the afternoon because the Grey Gauntlet one was at the same time. But these are on opposite sides. So like, while it says 20 miles to one and 11 to the other, I can't make both. So I'm going to be able to pick two. Which probably means I'm going to go to Valkyrie's Vault and probably Grey Gauntlet because I'm more familiar with that store. But this is an example of how you can find those, right? And then once you click on one of these, you can get the details of what they put into that event. So you can see that this is a Part the Mistveil pre-release. You can see that they have a blurb in here talking about the fees. Not everybody fills this out at the same, so like if you check here, theirs is very simple. It just says call or text getting a hold of, that individual, right? So there's varying levels of detail you can find on these. Sometimes they even have like an event link, right? If you click on the event link, it'll take you to a secondary website, which they might have a buy a ticket for, that kind of thing. In these scenarios here, I don't think this one actually had a buy a ticket for. So anyways, that is how you would find an event. Now, once you've found an event, we're going to talk a little bit further, I'm going to get rid of that one, about Part the Mistveil. So this is another asset or resource that's available. It's actually a really great resource. It's called Fabrary. You may or may not know about this. And what's nice about this is you can kind of go in with two trains of thought. Now, I'm a little bit more old school with my train of thought, and I prefer to go in fairly blind. Obviously, I do keep an idea of what some of the cards do. I keep up with spoilers. I read things. I check out stuff. But I don't like to sit there and play a bunch of games on the online clients that exist, in basically preparation for the event. So I like to come in as for lack of a better word, as open-eyed and uninformed as possible, so that I can have a better experience at the event, like if I were to go to an actual pre-release event, where technically most of the time you don't know that. But there are others that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? There are others that will be there that will know every card, every interaction, and every single point of, you know, value that you can extract to make their heroes great. But that's not something you need to worry about. Like, don't focus on that. As a new player, you're going to come in, and in this game, it's hero-centric based. So you're going to look at the heroes that exist in the set. Now, this set is also very interesting for a myriad of reasons, honestly, but this is the first time they have added a talent back into the game in the form of Mystic. Mystic is a talent. This is the first time they've added a talent back in the game since at least 4 or 5 sets back. So the last time, I think it was like Royal, and then you had, you know, some other various ones like Draconic is another example. Those are talents. Now, since Fab is a class-based game, you're going to be selecting from one of the 3 classes that were released in this. Now, using Fab right here, we're going to go to Fab and then Release Sets. We're going to open that in a new tab real quick just to show you, because this is useful. So I have it sorted here by the date of release, meaning that right now, Part the Mistvale, wow, sorry, I have a cold, apologies. Part the Mistvale is a draftable set, and it's coming out in May 2024. So the 3 heroes are Enigma, Nu, and Zen, which are the classes Assassin, Illusionist, and Ninja. And you'll see over here it released the talent Mystic. It's the first time you've seen that. Now, if you go back from some of the other sets, right, we had a Light and Shadow. That was from Dusk Till Dawn. That was a reprint of a talent from an earlier set, Monarch. Now, if you go back further, Dynasty, that was the last time a new talent was introduced with Royal, and that was specifically for, like, the Emperor and a couple other cards that had that. But the major one prior to that was really in June of 2022 is Uprising, where you had Draconic, Elemental, and Ice, which Draconic being a re-release of... well, I can't say re-release because the Dromai and Phi decks came out at the same time. But regardless, a talent is an add-on to a class. So you can have a Ninja as a class, an Illusionist as a class, a Mechanologist as a class, a Bard as a class. But then Flesh and Blood may come out with a hero that accentuates that in some way, such as a Mystic Bard or a Ice Ninja. That'd be very, very scary, by the way. An Elemental Assassin, right? Like, it would be, there's just plenty of these, you know, knobs they can pull, things they can turn. So that's just a little background on some of the sets. So for this Part the Mistvale set, this is a location, fabrary.net, where you can get a list of all the cards if you want to take a look. Now, there's different ways you can view these, right? Extra large, medium, small, and, like, use a microscope. But as you scroll through, there will be main cards. There are different rarities within the set. Common, rare. There is no uncommon in Flesh and Blood as of now. You know, you have Majestics. You have legendaries, you have fabled, you have marvels. So those are just examples of some of the rarities that are in the game. And the rarities do not necessarily one-to-one dictate power level. As an example, from an older set, Sink Below is a common, but it is a very powerful common. It is probably unarguably one of the best defense reactions in the game. And it's at no higher rarity than a common. So some of these cards will show up in packs that you'll get at the pre-release. And I believe the methodology for these pre-releases, which, if you're curious, we can actually go find that. So let's go to Flesh and Blood's website. Oh, that's the card finder. We'll go somewhere else. So we're going to go to Articles. And in Articles, you can look at the Part the Mistvale premiere, which happened in Tokyo. There was some live coverage of that over the weekend. And that kind of covers some of the information that was there. There were definitely some things that kind of shook out of that, which I will not go into in this video, but regardless, the different pieces here, like Part the Mistvale release event. So if I click on this, right, and open this up for you, this is going to walk you through some of the information that you might want to know. So each player receives a 10-card pre-release pack, which will include a random equipment, which is a rainbow foil. That is a variation of a card. So there are regular cards, there's rainbow foils, there's cold foils, there's alternate arts, there's alternate art cold foils, alternate art rainbow foils. But that is going to be, looks like one of these 14 variations of cards. It says one random chakra cold foil. Now, the chakras here are these 3 cards that are located here. These are just, again, alternate promo. They'll have a promo symbol in the bottom of them from one of the, because these are in the set, right? And then you'll get, it looks like, 2 of the Fang Strike and Slither promo cards, which those are, I believe they're tokens, if I recall, because they're or no, Fang Strike may not be. I don't think those are tokens. Scratch that. But you do get the 6 token cards, which is what that would be. So this is like a pre-release pack. You'll get just a little pack of cards. I don't have one behind me. So you'll get a pack of these cards that you'll be able to use in your kit. And then on top of that, you'll get additional packs that you will create your actual deck with. So you'll get, it says 8 packs for you to build. Now some stores do it a little different. Some get like a pack per win, or everyone gets at least 1 pack for participating, and then maybe there's like a random raffle for some other stuff. So there's a myriad of really interesting things. Obviously this set has a little bit more interesting variety with some of these boxes containing these magical gold packs that are in it. So maybe you'll be at an LGS where you'll be lucky enough to find one of those packs, and maybe it goes to the person who takes the top. Or honestly, I would hope that most LGSs will just randomly roll off for that, because I feel like that would be the most fun and fair way for that for everybody, right? Versus like a new player comes in and be like, oh wow, what is that? And then they'll never have a chance theoretically, because there could be somebody that's much better than them. But hey, there's always a chance, right? Like that's the whole point of playing a game with any sort of variance, right? Like having that variance is key. But I am way off topic here, so let's go back. So we now have fabtcg.com, where we found our event. We know we're attending an event. We know what we're getting at the event. We know what it costs, and now we're going to head to the event. So some things you may want to bring with you. Do you have a playmat? So like as an example, I have hundreds of playmats because they exist like candy in every ecosystem. So I have magic ones, Pokemon, I have Flesh and Blood. I have so many Flesh and Blood mats. And what's nice is as you get more and more into the community, you'll find that people will probably gift you mats. I've given away multiple mats to multiple new players over the years. And those playmats can be just a nice piece of artwork, or they can be more functional, right? They have the zones on them to show you where pieces of equipment go and where they need to be for when you're going to that event. There'll also probably be, especially if you're brand new, people that are willing to coach you through how to build a deck, what options you should maybe look at, or personally, my recommendation is Ninja is pretty straightforward as a class in general. So if you're not familiar with the other ones, most likely, as long as your pool supports it, pick Ninja. Like that's going to be a pretty straightforward combo out and do things, and play your attacks and reactions and so on and so forth. This video is not going to get into that necessarily. Once I have some cards in front of me, I will talk through my reasons behind how I build something, and we'll have a video on that coming up. I have some older ones where I went over some other pre-releases in the past. But at a high level here, there are different things you can look at. So now that we've been at the event, we're going to go back to Faberé, and let's maybe take a look at some of the classes. Let's actually start by looking at the heroes. Now, there are 2 types of formats in Flesh and Blood. You're going to have the CC format, which is the Classic Constructed. Okay, there's more than 2 types. I'm simplifying this because there are other types, Clash Commoner, UPF, PvE, that's coming, trademark soon. So you have CC heroes and you have young heroes. Now, for the event, I believe... Where were we? After I've conferred with the Council of Elders, or I should say the greater portion of Discord and all the powers that be, I have discovered that I guess I was incorrect. It is young heroes is which you will be using. So to showcase these heroes, we're going to go ahead and actually go to a different section of the FabTCG website here, which is the fabtcg.com/heroes. So these are the 3 new heroes that exist. You have New, Alluring Desire, Enigma, Ledger of Ancestry, and Zen, Tamer of Purpose. Now, each of these have, obviously, their own unique classes. They all look like they share the Mystic talent, so that pool will be shared. But each of these kind of act different, right? Like, when we go back to here, which is one of these magical tabs. Oh, my gosh. Oops. Doop, 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 doop. Here we go. So let's look at New, right? This is the Mystic Assassin hero - Young. Young is typically the hero type that's used in the Blitz format. It is the lower life total that comes from, say, an adult hero, or typically the CC hero, which is more of the standard or kind of de facto, I guess, for lack of a better word, de facto format that you would typically see at most armory events or higher level callings and worlds and stuff like that. CC is kind of the premier format, right? That's what their bread and butter is based on. Now, in this scenario here, new, the adult, has 40 life, and the ability, your attacks with stealth get, when this chain link resolves, banish all action cards defending this, and then at instant speed, 3. Now these are the chi icons. This is chi resource, not not the regular flesh and blood red resource. We'll get back to that. Look at the top card of an opposing hero's deck. If it is blue, blue being the pitch at the top, you may banish it until end of turn. You may play blue cards from that hero's banish zone without paying their, and this is the regular resource cost. Now, new Alluring Desire is different than new in name, technically, as well as young status. But you'll notice the ability is the same. So, new Alluring Desire is a 4 intellect, that's your hand size, or that's what you draw up to at the turn, at 40 health. And then the young version is 4 intellect, 20 health, with the nomenclature of -young at the bottom. So, just as an FYI, they are considered unique individuals, and they, at the long run, will end up on something called the leaderboard, which we can talk about in another video. I've covered that in the past in some capacity. So there's a bunch of cards that go with that assassin-type class here, and then we will begin to look for the next hero, which, you know, there's a lot here, right? So maybe you don't know the heroes. So let's teach you a little trick with Fabrary. If you were to search for these cards in the Part the Mistveil, right, it's going to say set MST at the top. Now if I go T for type and type hero, you'll see that now I've restricted my search down to hero. Fabrary is an amazing tool for people that want to find specific cards, like a blue card that costs 3 that does this or has this ability. There's just so much syntax. That is a whole video in itself. So I will ignore that for now, but what I've done is I've made it simpler for us to show these heroes. So now the next one here is Enigma, Ledger of Ancestry. This is your first Spectral Shield attack. Each turn costs 1 resource less to activate. And once per turn instant, 3 chi, create a Spectral Shield token with a +1 counter on it. Now, you'll notice that Enigma here, the young version, same ability, 4 intellect, 20 health versus 40. I personally do not know much about the Illusionist class. I am not the right person to talk about it, but I have heard this is very powerful and very interesting, especially with your tokens basically kind of almost being like Ashwings and dragons, and having these like ability to basically come in and swing for damage from what I gather. So I could be very wrong on that, but it does seem interesting. The person I'm probably going to bounce between is going to either be Zen or New. So let's talk about this Zen over here, Zen, Tamer of Purpose. And he is a Mystic Ninja hero. And this is a once per turn, 3 chi, create a Crouching Tiger in your hand, search your deck for a card with combo. That is a keyword. It is bolded. Most keywords in Flesh and Blood are bolded. It'll say banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this turn. Now again, here's another version of Zen. Very similar. The young version, 4 intellect, 20 health. You'll notice that that's 20 to 40. 20 is kind of the ballpark for young, 20 and 4. 4 intellect, 20 health. And adult is 40 health, 4 intellect. That's kind of a thing. Now there's this really interesting catch 22 down here, Enigma New Moon. This is a card that is a marvel. It's a different ability. It is in a special pack. We are not going to talk about this. There is a whole episode that can be done just on this, but just know that you will not most likely see this card in your premier pre-release event. In your event, you will not be having to go against Enigma New Moon. Instead, you will be having to go against Enigma, just Enigma, or Enigma if you don't pull the young and you have the adult. But same thing, it's just 20 health versus 40. Most people are pretty cool with that. They don't care. So, going back to Part the Mistveil, holistically, now you picked a hero, right? You've picked a hero, which is a class. So, it's a ninja, it's an assassin, or it's an illusionist. After that, you're going to have to start looking at equipment. Equipment is one of the key features of Flesh and Blood, where your equipment kind of dictates and supplements and also does a lot of other things, but in a very high level, the equipment is things you can block with, but it also provides additional kind of bolt-on abilities. Think of it like, you know, if you have a Pinto and you want to put a supercharger on it, well, you go get the supercharger helmet and the spoiler for the wing, which is your legs, and you go get the aftermarket, you know, rims, and that's your arms. And, you know, I mean, that's a horrible analogy, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of things that you can leverage equipment to do really interesting things. Now, there's also weapons, right? So there are token weapons, which kind of are tied to the hero, and there are non-token weapons that are not tied to the hero. And in this case, the token weapon is Beckoning Mistblade for the Mystic Assassin weapon. So that's important because, right, if you were just an assassin hero, you couldn't use this because you don't have the Mystic subtalent. But if you were, let's say, a wider swath once you're into this game further and you want to use a different weapon, you can go back to another set like Dynasty and pick up a dagger that is specific to assassin only and use that with your hero outside of your pre-release event, because the pre-release event is a sealed pool of cards, very limited. It's what you get, right? So that's something to think about long term. But there is a weapon that will go with your hero, so you're already going to have a weapon. You're going to have probably not all the equipment, but most likely, based on what I'm hearing, if you have 8 packs, you're going to get at least I think 1 piece of equipment per pack, so odds are you'll have enough. And there are some interesting aspects of these I guess this is a new keyword again in this set, right? We'll look at Heirloom of Snakehide. It's called Cloaked. Now, typically your equipment would come in at the beginning of the game face down, and you would wait for your opponent to put the same thing out. And then you're going to reveal your hero, reveal your weapon, reveal your. So you're gonna kind of get to know who the hero is, but you don't get to know their equipment suite. So you can't maybe metagame against it as easy or whatever. Now, this interesting thing is you get cloaked items, which cloaked items come in upside down, and they don't. You just basically tell your opponent, "Hey, this is cloaked. It's a cloaked headpiece, a cloaked arm, a cloaked chest, a cloaked legs." You don't have to really, you don't get to see it until I choose to do something. So cloaked is, because it's face down, it says, while this equipment is face down at the start of your turn, if you have exactly 1 health, you may turn this face up. Now, that's a very specific, very easy to define thing, right? At the start of your turn, if your hero is down to 1 health, your equipment goes from nothing to now it can flip up, and it becomes a 2-block card with Battle Worn 1. So when the combat change closes, if you defend, put a -1 counter on. So what that means, the first time it defends, that's 2. And then if that chain were to close, like a pistol dash or something where it goes back, and they were to come again, you could then use it again for a 1 defense, because it's -1. And then at the end of that change, it would just shatter, disappear, and go into oblivion. But that gives you basically a total of 3 block, even though it says 2. These are more advanced things. We won't go into that too much, but that's some of the mentality behind the equipment. Honestly, what I would focus on as a first-time new player, just the experience, the enjoyment, the learning the basics of the game. And this set is not, in my opinion, as straightforward as one of the earlier sets called Heavy Hitters, where that was really a fantastic callback to some of the early just, beating each other up, mano-a-mano type stuff, where you would have very good, easy to use classes. You had a warrior, you had a brute, that kind of thing. It's a different era, but either way, those cards legal in a different sense. But for Mistveil, you have Assassin, which is kind of more of a, I would say, you want to sneak stuff in. There's different iterations and variations of those. You got Illusionist, which does a lot of illusionist things. Sorry, can't really give you much detail there. And Ninja, which, I have multiple iterations of that over time. Go wide, go tall, called, in this case, really more tiger-focused kind of thing. There's all sorts of unique stuff. So let's go ahead, and now you kind of got a hint of the heroes, a little bit of the equipment, and you know that the sets come out. There's also another tool that I want to highlight, and this is one I haven't really got to work with very much, but this is the Flesh and Blood Advanced Card Search. Now, this is another utility you can use once you're kind of done, that you can type in a name, so new, new maybe? Well, I'll just hit search and see what comes up, right? Oh, there you go. So look, there is all the cards that begin with in you. Now, that was a very simple search, right? But inside of new, I can click on new, and it tells me more information about new. If there is true text is their version of like an errata text, things that change over time, right? And printed text is what's physically on the card. Then there's different variations, right? If you're a different language person, there's French, German, Italian, Spanish, and now Japanese, which was why this was such a cool set, because this Part the Mistveil was the first set in Japanese to be released. So this is kind of the awakening. Now, in your packs, as you get them, if you go all the way down, you keep scrolling, you're going to see all these cool cards, right? All different classes. There's class cards. Class cards are spelled out at the bottom. They'll say what class they go to. And then you'll run into things that are generic cards, right? Like some of these, Nimble Strike. This is a reprint from an early set, but has now been reprinted in Mistveil. So if I recall, this is a WTR card. Yep, it's a WTR, and it's also in Part the Mistveil. Generic cards are generic for the sole reason that they can be used in any class, right? So that's pretty sweet. You can get stuff that you don't necessarily have to have in one particular class. They work for multiple classes. You'll also notice that there is a Crack Bauble, my absolute favorite card. You're not going to highlight it, but it is just they call it draft chaff, but like it is there for like sealed decks and stuff, because when you don't have enough cards, this is just a unique, fun card. But you should collect them too. I collect them. Everyone should collect them. They are just fantastic cards. Long live the crack ball. Anyways, at the very end of the set, 2 or 3 sets ago, they released a concept called, in Magic it was called the list, but in Flesh and Blood it's called the expansion slot. The expansion slot are cards that come into this set that are not specific to this set, but they are more like for other classes. As an example, you'll see a Guardian card, a Warrior card. There's a myriad of Mechanologist cards. Hallelujah, I have Arcane Barrier. Again, very advanced thing, kind of not really, but we'll talk about that. Arcane Barriers for arcane damage, something my class, Mechanologist, really lacked, so this is fantastic to see. There's Rangers and other things. So these cards in here, Wizard and some of the Shadow and Draconic Illusionist, these are cards that change other decks and are released now with every set. So the last couple of sets, there's been unique cards that are at the end, and most of these come randomly at the end of packs. So you might see one of these. Now, when you see one of these at the end of the pack, you're probably not going to be able to use them, so you're just going to set them to the side, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. There's also a chance that you might see a Marvel, which is a double-sided, full-art, beautiful version of some of these cards, right? So you might run into a cold foil or an extended art. These are things that, you know, will definitely catch your eyeball at the event, and you'll just have to experience that. I don't want to spoil any of those for you, just so you can kind of get to do that. Now, I do want to talk about TCG Player here for just a quick second, and TCG Player is another reference where if you want to look up prices or cards, things like that, you can take a look here. So if you look at the best selling as an example in Part the Mistveil, we can see that people are buying cases, boxes, and this new product which is coming out is basically the introductory set for Part the Mistveil. It is going to be the combination of the 3 Blitz decks, those 3 heroes that I talked about earlier. That set will contain those 3 in there, so your LGS should probably have them. I think the MSRP is right around $70, $75, a little bit steep, but you do get a nice long box, very similar to this was the one that they released for the Ultimate Pit Fight UPF Tolarian Community College. Just had 4 decks in it. You got a playmat, stuff like that. In the Mistveil one, you're going to also get a playmat. I believe you get some packs in there as well, if I recall, so that's pretty interesting. But these are just various things you can look up, right? So now if we go and look at the next thing, you can see that this is, you know, just the boxes. We won't go into detail on that. Another item that we can talk about real quick, this is the Part the Mistveil Collector Center. Collector Center is for the collectors. So if you're coming into this game and you want to collect things, this is a good place to look at. Being the 13th set, right, this is giving you some information on the release dates, the languages, who the heroes are, some statistics about the set, Fableds, Legendaries, Majestics, Rares, Commons, Tokens. There are premium foils, gives you statistics on, for the most part, how to get what you can get, what kind of cold foils exist, and marvels, correct? So like there is a specific marvel that is in there that's kind of harder to find. And then there's these beautiful, if I go back here, there's these beautiful bits of card galleries. This is a variation. This is the official Flesh and Blood version of the card gallery. We were looking at Fabry earlier, but you'll see here this is the same concept. It will not have near as much information. This is just the image, right? So you're not going to have all that searchable text and things like that you would see on Fabry. But that's where they're using that, you know, card, where to go, the card beta piece for, which we'll have to do a video kind of stress testing that and see how it works. So that is, for lack of a better word, almost everything I feel like I need to show you. Again, whether you're picking Enigma, Zen, or New, those are various things that you can look at. I'm pretty excited about this entire event. I'm going to go ahead and pause for just a second. All right, I'm back, and again, thank you. Thank you very much for listening to that video. That has been my kind of synopsis on just the kind of Flesh and Blood premiere, you know, pre-release event for Part the Mistveil. Hopefully all this information finds you well. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, you know, all that fun stuff. I really am trying to grow this channel, and I appreciate you sticking around and listening to some of this stuff. Over time, you know, I do want to do a lot of variety of videos, and hopefully some of these, you know, find some interest to you. And also, if you have things you want me to research or look into, also put those in the comment section below. So I couldn't do it without you. And until next time, may your games be fun and your friendships grow. And as always, if you're going to the pre-release, show some compassion and care to each other. And also, if you're a new player and you have an existing player around, hopefully the existing players are, and the community's great, right? So they're going to most likely be helping you, and they should even probably, most likely, it's an unwritten rule, most people just give away their commons and rares from the new set to new players just to help get them started with their collection. So, all right, until next time, cheers.